Hey YouTube, Mr. Terry back here with another gaming video. Today we're going to make another tiered list, and what we're going to do today is rank the Assassin's Creed games, for me personally, into tiers for my favorite and least favorite games. Now this series of course is very popular in our community because as you know, I run a history channel, and it's also a very popular game series. So I love this series, and I've basically played all of the major games ever since they came out. And it's come up a lot in the discussions of live streams and things when I've played these games online in the chat of people, sharing which ones are their favorites and that sort of thing. So I felt it was time for me to go ahead and put out there of where do I rank the Assassin's Creed games. Now, if you like this kind of tiered videos, you might want to check out my previous one. What I did is went through and put tiers of my favorite consoles of all time. And if you have other ideas that might be fun for kind of ranking or tier videos, go ahead and let me know. You can do it in the comments or come over to our Discord channel, and we have a pretty popular gaming section over there. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here's what I've done here. I'm going to put them into 3 tiers. I feel more comfortable doing 3 tiers in this rather than like 5 tiers, because I think if you get like 5 tiers, which I know is common sometimes, I think you have to have a lot more kind of inventory to sort there. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So what we have here are the major releases. Now I am going to exclude something already, and that is any of the mobile games or ones that are just kind of, kind of like offshoots of the main game. So like of this list that you can see right here, check this out. We've got Assassin's Creed, the original, Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag, Rogue, Unity, Syndicate, Origins, Odyssey. And the last one here is Liberation. I'm not going to put this in here because I didn't play. This was, I think, on PSP, and I didn't play that one, so we're not going to do that one. But we're going to go ahead and go through them. We're going to do it in order right now of release. So let's go ahead and start with one that, to me personally, might be the hardest one to actually rank, and that's the first one, because I'm going to tell you it's not going to be top tier for me. I think for right now, this may change. I'm going to put it in the middle right now. Now, why necessarily? I feel like it was, people were kind of right. It was kind of repetitive. The exploration wasn't as good. A lot of the mechanics weren't fleshed out, and undoubtedly, it seems like you kind of have to rank it compared to the other ones, which they did such a good job improving this series that it really just kind of puts the first one down on a sort of lower level. I was even considering putting this on the bottom, but let's come back to that, because I feel like with tier videos, tiers, I guess, in general, when you're ranking, sometimes you change stuff as you start comparing it. So let's see, because where I may start here may not be where I end up. All right, well, let's go ahead and then move into the next one, Assassin's Creed 2. Now, this is very likely my favorite Assassin's Creed game. When you look at what they did after the original, it's easily one of the biggest jumps they had in improvemments. They took the mechanics of the original Assassin's Creed and made them a lot better. The development of Altair, was okay, but Ezio has become really, like, it seems like the trademark character for this series, and it helps when you have 3 series. But Assassin's Creed 2 might be, I am fairly confident I will say it is my favorite game. Okay, it's my favorite Assassin's Creed game. I love that they had the setting of the Renaissance there, and going through different city-states. You get to go to Florence and Venice and bounce around Italy there, which was great. Great story to go along with it. Really kind of fleshes out the story a little bit too. Had some fun main stuff as well as side stuff. The exploration of the cities. To me, the most important part of Assassin's Creed game is just the environment itself. And I will say my favorite Assassin's Creed games are ones, especially that have more urban exploration, and we'll get into that more when we get to the other ones. And this just did a great job. It was so great to see a lively, Florence. But I love this game. You can buy the remastered version, which you can get on like PS4 and stuff. So if you were maybe a little bit younger, and you jumped in later to the series, buy what's called the Ezio trilogy. I think you're really gonna like it. All right, but let's do. Okay, so we're good there. Next one after this was Brotherhood. So Brotherhood was a direct sequel to Assassin's Creed 2. It continues the Altair story. Now the difference with Brotherhood was that it was basically all contained in one city, where Assassin's Creed 2 had multiple cities. So it was a little bit smaller. Each city was a little bit smaller, but you got more of them. Brotherhood focused on developing in a much larger scale one city, and of course that was Rome. And it basically kept all of the good things about Assassin's Creed 2. And I feel like if you liked Assassin's Creed 2, I don't really see any reason that you would see Brotherhood as any different, because it really didn't change much. And because of that, I do put it in my top tier. Sometimes I kind of will bounce back and forth between what's my favorite team, Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed 2. But, it might depend on the day, and I think they're so comparable because the mechanics and the storyline are connected and they're very similar. As other games have different mechanics and a very different story, but you get to continue more of Ezio. You really, come to really get even closer to Ezio in this. But I loved going through Rome, and it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see Rome at its height, but of course you're doing it during the Renaissance era. So the older sites are kind of run down and stuff like that, but it's still so cool to see Rome like this, even if it is already in a ruin that way. All right, but yes, that is top tier for me. So we have Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood are top tiers for me. Now you would think, maybe right here, that continuing on with the Assassin's Creed 2 series, if you want to look at it that way, but the Ezio series, that Revelations will be right in there. So Revelations is in Istanbul / Constantinople, in that kind of transition period there. And it's a great city to explore. However, I'm not going to put it in the top tier. I'm going to put Revelations in the mid tier. Now, it completes the story, which is great for Ezio, and completes that, which was great. And, Ezio is definitely the most popular character, and a lot of that's justifiably so, because he's a good character, but he got 3 games to flesh out his character, while the other games, you really just got one character for one game. So you didn't get into that depth. But they kept a lot of the things that were good about Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood. One thing they did add, which I never really liked, was kind of the tower defense sort of mechanic they put in, where these assassin neighborhoods get kind of invaded and you have to protect them. I felt that was not very fun for me, and kind of halted a little bit of the not the immersion of the game, but kind of the progression. It kind of was a plot stopper in a way. That's just personally. So I think it's a mid-tier game. I do love, again, the city itself, Istanbul. I love exploring it. The Hagia Sophia. This game is one of the things that made me fall in love with that building. And it's one of my favorite architectural things. By the way, same thing with in Florence, the Duomo. The Duomo and the Hagia Sophia are buildings that are, again, fun to explore, and these games are directly responsible for making me love those buildings. I talk in my classes sometimes. You guys know I'm a history teacher. That my favorite buildings in history, and 2 of them are, it's fun to be able to crawl around and explore those in a game like this. But I'm going to put Assassin's Creed Revelations right in that mid-tier. Okay, so next up then we got Assassin's Creed 3. Now this was so hyped for me when it was coming out. The Ezio series was ending, and I'm like, all right, we're going to have a new character, a new timeline. Then it came out, it was going to be during the American Revolution. I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool. But I did kind of have a worry in a way in the lead up of this game that ended up kind of coming to fruition, and it's this. These 3 Assassin's Creed games, even going back to the original, was about the exploration of cities, the vertical exploration of cities, right? And when you thought about Assassin's Creed 3, you're like, well, I mean, I guess they can do it in like Boston or New York or something like that, but this is 18th century. These cities aren't very big and don't have the detail and depth that you would have in that. And of course, that's exactly what happened in this game. You had Boston, but it wasn't a very fun city to explore. Now, what they balanced that, and they did this intentionally, was developing the whole forested region, right? So a lot of what you're doing is a lot of running through trees and tree to tree and all that stuff. And I never found that very fulfilling. I never found that very fulfilling at all. It was just like you were going through a forest that could have been anywhere in the world. There was no, to me, historical connection. And maybe that's why, for me, like connecting to the historically relevant locations is such a big part of this series for me. I know for some people it isn't as much. But nevertheless, where do I put Assassin's Creed 3? Well, after going through the story and stuff like that, I found Connor to not be a very interesting character. In fact, his father was a more interesting character, actually. But without going too much in the details of the stories, this game was, and I felt it basically when I finished it immediately, it was a big disappointment for me. It is going in the bottom tier. Again, Boston was not very fun to explore. The forested regions, just it made no connection to me. Connor wasn't a great character for me to deal with. It wasn't all that kind of fun to me. It was cool to see some of the things that played out in the American Revolution, like Lexington and Concord, something like that, and then getting into like George Washington, and they have some DLC with him and stuff. I'm also interested to know, for non-Americans, what did you all think of the Assassin's Creed 3? Is it an interesting enough story to get you into it? Because it's all patriotic, for Americans as part of American history. But anyways, I will say this game was probably the most disappointing of the games. Now, I will say this: there is not a bad Assassin's Creed game. There's not. They're all good games. When you compare them to other games, they're great games. But remember, what I'm doing here is tiering them amongst themselves, because some of them, like Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, are among my favorite games of all time. So none of these are bad. We're just ranking them against themselves, against each other. All right. Now, when Assassin's Creed 3 was done, again, I was kind of disappointed. And then they announced Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and that it would be a pirate-themed game. And immediately, I remember having the same worries of, they got away from the cool urban exploration in Assassin's Creed 3. And obviously a more pirate game is going to be something different. Now, the big focus that they were doing with that was naval battles, right? And you got a little bit of that in Assassin's Creed 3, but it was so focused on it. And it went even further with more of the natural environment exploration, going to these islands, and you had to travel to all these different islands. And I felt that was so tedious. I know a lot of people, for a lot of the younger people I know that I've talked to in my community, Black Flag is often seen as their favorite one. It's actually, for me, one of my least favorite. And I kind of bounce around sometimes between Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Flag about which one I dislike the most. Black Flag just didn't do it for me. And someone made, even some fans I've heard that I've talked to about this that really like this game say, well, here's the thing. Black Flag is not a good Assassin's Creed game, but it's a great pirate game. And when I looked at it from that perspective, I'm like, yeah, I could see that. Because if you're not necessarily going for, again, what Assassin's Creed, the earlier games are built on, and just as if you're looking for a pirate naval game, it pretty much nails it. And I can't argue with that. But for an Assassin's Creed game, it didn't do it for me. It didn't do it for me. I know people love the characters and stuff like that in that, but it didn't do it for me. So as you can see, with those two games out, my kind of enthusiasm for Assassin's Creed was kind of starting to die because I didn't really love the direction they were going. And I'm not saying that they have to do the same thing every game. I'm not at all. But it wasn't working for me. The environments weren't as fun. The gameplay wasn't as fun for me. I missed some of that older stuff. So my enthusiasm was kind of down. And I'll tell you what's evidence of my enthusiasm going down. It's when Assassin's Creed Rogue came out. When Assassin's Creed Rogue came out, I basically didn't even know it existed. I think I wasn't really paying attention to the series development, and I was like, oh, Assassin's Creed's going this way. It's not about like these assassinations and the stuff I was talking about earlier. So, to be honest, Rogue to me, I didn't even really feel and know that it was a mainline release. It was like years later where people were like, did you play Rogue? Did you play Rogue? And I'm like, well, no, did anybody play Rogue? But a lot of people did admit, though, that it came so close between Black Flag and Unity that people kind of, in general, I wasn't the only one, felt the game was not even a part of really the main series. So I actually went back to Rogue years after it came out because I'm like, well, I got to play them all. I want to play them all. So I played it. And, of course, what I found with Rogue was it's very similar to Black Flag, right? You're sailing to a bunch of different places. The character is pretty decent there. I kind of liked the character that was in there. So it is kind of hard because I played this out of order, but it was more of Black Flag and 3 than it was to my mid or higher tiers. So I actually have a hard time tiering this as well. To me, it's somewhere in A or B, and I think I am gonna put it lower. I think I'm going to put it on the bottom tier right now. So you can see with this chunk of time, about 3 years or so, was not really great for me. Okay. Then they announced the next one, and this immediately got me excited and passionate back for the series again. And that was Assassin's Creed Unity, because they announced that it was going to be a return back to a little bit more of the older style, which is going to be urban exploration, because Unity was set, and I was so excited when I heard it was set during the French Revolution, right? It's something I love teaching and talking about. I love the French Revolution for the chaos, I guess, that it was. But this came out, and I heard, it looks like the way they're going to set up is going to be much more something like Brotherhood or Revelations, where you're going to have one big city and a giant Paris with all its cool things that you can explore in there. A big, lively city was something I was excited about even before it came out. And then when it came out, it took me a while to get used to it. But it was a departure from the series, and it took me some time to get back to it. I will say this: Unity had to grow on me. It wasn't like 2 and Brotherhood, where I was into it right away. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't into it right away. It took some time to get into. But once I really dug into it, I grew to love it. I started paying more to the series. I remember too, when I played Unity, I didn't just sit down and play it all through. I think I played it and then stopped for a while, and I got back to it. And when you do that, with games like this, you lose the story. So I remember I think I kind of almost just flushed it clean. And was like, all right, we're going to go and just restart it. And Arno was a great character. I thought he was a good character. And sat down and played it and thought, okay, this is back to, for me, top tier Assassin's Creed games. It is top tier for me. Now, it is top tier. And with this, I guess if I was to have more tiers, it might be kind of in another one in here. But to me, it's way ahead of this. I don't feel like I was there. So I want to put it in the top tier, though. It is a top tier game. I loved how you could go. One of the cool things was going through buildings. Like in somewhere like Brotherhood, you couldn't go in any regular buildings, and Unity did have that. You could, as you're running away from guards or something, run through somebody's living room pretty much and get to the other side. But it was cool to see it fleshed out. And again, I love the French Revolution backdrop. So Assassin's Creed Unity is a top tier one for me. Okay. And then after that, so my faith was restored back in Assassin's Creed. And then the next one was announced. Syndicate. Now I was thinking about that, and I think I remember being like, okay, this is kind of cool. We're getting a lot more modern. It's going to be London during the Industrial Revolution, and I'm like, all right, okay, now we're getting into something a little further. And Syndicate was a game that when I started it, I could not get into it. I could not get into it. It was not interesting. Um, brother, sister Evie, and Jake. Anyway, they were just not that interesting to me. London, for whatever reason, when I first played it, didn't jump out to me the way like Rome or Paris did. So I got into that game. I played it. I also didn't like something that some of the Assassin's Creed games were kind of getting into, which I just never liked as a mechanic, which was like shooting mechanics. I mean, you still rely a lot on your melee, right? But yeah, you've got some of that, and I didn't really like the way that kind of came out, was the shooting mechanics. So anyway, that game came out, and I just got bored with it pretty much, and I stopped playing. Okay. And then I kind of was like, all right, I guess there's just Assassin's Creed games I'm not going to finish. All right, so be it. And then you got possibly the biggest mechanics change between any Assassin's Creed games, and that went to Origins. And by the way, I'm going to play Syndicate here, but I have to kind of preface this next part because I went away from Syndicate. And I played Origins, and then I played Odyssey, and eventually sat down and said, you know what? I've got to give Syndicate another chance. So I did. I had forgotten everything the game was about and restarted a campaign. I actually did the whole thing on stream and played it and found that I actually quite liked a lot of it. There was some kind of janky mechanics I felt that were in there, and I've talked about in my streams, that didn't quite feel right. There was some things I liked. The grappling was kind of nice. Just, I guess, if you're lazy, it kind of helped to grapple up on buildings. But it was kind of a janky kind of mechanic. But anyways, I went back to the game and actually ended up liking it quite a bit. The brother-sister combo was good. The enemy, he was a great villain, because I never really got into depth with him the first time I played it when it came out. So this was a game similar in a way to Unity, that when I spaced it out, it took me a while to get in, but once I got in, it good. Now, it is not at Unity level. That's why Syndicate is going in the middle. It is going into the middle. All right. Anyway, let's jump back into what I was saying with Origins. So with Origins, again, was a big departure mechanically, and they were going for that. The idea of Egypt was very cool. I was wondering, again, what kind of exploration could you get out of something that ancient? But then, you hear it's actually during kind of the time when the Romans were coming in. So it's a little bit late. It's not, Old Kingdom Egypt. It's very much like New Kingdom. It's very much at the end of that even. So anyway, the big departure, of course, though, was the fact that you were now going to be doing much more like RPG mechanics. And that took me a while to get used to. And the fighting combat was different. It wasn't just like every Assassin's Creed game was, right, like block and counter. And this game and where they went with Odyssey 2, they didn't do that. It actually was, in a way, a lot more difficult, because it was much more about timing, dodging, that kind of stuff. But one of the things that was kind of cool about Origins was, you got new stuff all the time. In the other Assassin's Creed games, you went to the store and then you bought the new, weapon or something. This, you kept getting drops from people and stuff like that. So I know for a lot of people, they didn't like that transition of where they were going, but it maybe took me a lot shorter time to do it than with some of these other games. But I liked the leveling up. Bayek was a good character. So Origins was a good game. I thought it was a good game. It was fun to just do things like slide down the Great Pyramid, and you also saw where they were going, and they've done this now a few times with Assassin's Creed games, was make a few different cities. Don't make one big, huge one, like Rome or Paris, London kind of thing, but smaller versions of multiple ones. You go to Alexandria and stuff like that. But yeah, you go to these different ones. So Origins, for me, is mid-tier. It is mid-tier. Then Odyssey, okay, so then Odyssey came out. And this is the last one we're going to talk about. So when they announced Ancient Greece, yes, and the stories are a little bit different now because this is like anything basically pre-Altair is kind of pre-Assassin. So it's like they're very much kind of. I feel like these games are very separate from the Assassin's Creed series, which I'm fine with. The Templars and the Assassins thing is kind of getting overplayed, and I've talked about on stream very much. I never really cared about the modern day story with the Apple of Eden and again the modern like Templar versus Assassins thing, and it got tiresome. I felt for a lot of these games when you went to those parts of the game where you like left the historical time period and went to the modern day, I thought it was a momentum like plot killer. It's like you're getting into it and it just ruined your immersion. So I was fine when they kind of got away from that and made each game more of a essentially like its own story. But anyway, I love Odyssey. I'm actually still playing. I'm playing a second full playthrough right now. The first playthrough I did was with Alexios, who I will say as a character, I just didn't care about. He was super cliche and kind of uninteresting. I'm as of right now, about halfway through a Cassandra playthrough, and for whatever reason, I actually find her more interesting. But going through and like going through the daily life of these vibrant little, of course, smaller scale city-states. That's what this game did, was all of Greece. Kind of how, in a way, although Origins wasn't trying to go for all of Egypt, they went for a lot of Egypt. They went for an Odyssey, basically getting all of Greece, just in miniature versions, and I loved it. And I remember, honestly, it was one of those feelings that you get in a game of awe. For that, when you first go to Athens, I remember the scenery worked out perfect, because I don't even know if I was going the right way the game was intending you, but I went up and over like these hills, and you see crowning at the top of the horizon there was the Acropolis with the Parthenon there. And I remember that being like an awe moment, and walking through, the Agora and just climbing up eventually to the top of the Acropolis with the Parthenon there and the statue to Athena. Like, it was so cool to me. Anyway, Odyssey continued on with basically all the elements that Origins did. But to me, it was a better setting. So Odyssey I like more than Origins. I loved the mechanics. I loved I felt like the legendary stuff was so cool, and it's like you got the chest plate of Achilles or the helmet of Agamemnon, and then it mixed in the Mycenaean and Minoan stuff, which I love, the history of those civilizations that came before the Greeks. Odyssey is top tier for me. And it is at a top tier for me. It is in this top four right there. Those are my top 4 Assassin's Creed games. Now, we're doing this on the eve in a few months of Valhalla, which from what I've heard is going to be similar. And maybe when that comes out, we can figure out where that gets in there. But they're taking definitely an Odyssey approach from what I've heard, and they're making all of England. And I'm okay with them doing the large like areas, like they make all of England, but it's going to be a little bit smaller. I'm fine with that as long as it doesn't get like boring. Where you had something like in Black Flag or something like that, or Rogue, which the cities themselves were just so small and uninteresting. At least you can pack in something like a Sparta or an Athens into a very lively place in a fairly small region. So I do like the direction that they're going. I know some people are kind of, whatever about it with the mechanics, the crafting. You start to craft your own kind of play style. It's like, hey, do you want to be more of an assassin? Do you want to be more of like a hunter type with bows? So it's like stealth. Do you like bows and ranged attacks? Do you want the classic warrior thing? I feel like it gives you a lot of added things there. One other thing I will say about Odyssey that made it so fun was the special moves, the abilities you got. I mean, if you guys have played Odyssey, how fun is the Spartan kick? You get up to some cliff, have some enemy, and you kick them off a mountain. Like, it's just, I don't know. I felt that was so fun and satisfying. So, anyway, that is where we're going to end things here. Again, there's this Liberation game, but I'm not going to put in the PSP games or, the side ones because I just think they're a different entity, and none of them are as good as these ones here. So we're going to kind of leave it at that. All right, let's go ahead and look over our list again. So we got the top tier. We got Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Unity, and Odyssey. I'm comfortable with that. I do think that's there. All right, second tier. Assassin's Creed 1, Revelation, Syndicate, and Origins. I think I'm good with that. And then the bottom tier, Assassin's Creed 3, Black Flag, and Rogue. I will say 2 games could be a little bit more fluid for me. And that is the original Assassin's Creed. I could honestly put down a little. I could maybe put a lower tier. And Rogue is, I guess if I did do another tier, I could actually do 4 tiers. I really could. If I was to put one more tier into these, I would put it between A and B. And I would probably put Assassin's Creed 1 and Rogue in, well... Actually, I don't know. I got to think about that more. I guess overall, though, I think I'm pretty comfortable. If I did have to put another tier, it'd probably be between A and B. And Assassin's Creed and Rogue the original Assassin's Creed could debatably be in that. But I do think, just with my gut, Assassin's Creed first one over Rogue, though. So I think I'm good here. I think I'm good. That's the only thing I have any kind of hesitation on. Other than that, I am good with this list. All right. Well, anyways, let me know what you guys think. Where do you put the tiers? You can put it in the comments, join our Discord server. People have been talking about it in the live chats a lot. That is fun to do, and we can, always do that. But yeah, where do you put things? I will say overall, like I said at the beginning of the video, Assassin's Creed is awesome. It has done, honestly, wonders for teaching history. Although you have these fictional stories, but there's a lot of real characters and all that stuff. To get people interested, it really does that. And as a teacher, every time, I'm teaching a unit that has one of these games in it, there'll be some kids that'll be like, hey, I remember this from Assassin's Creed, or hey, was this thing in Assassin's Creed real that was talking about this? I love that as anything that can get people interested. So historically themed video games, I'm all about. Plus, these are fantastic games. They're among my favorite games of all time. So there is no truly like a bad Assassin's Creed game. They just are varied quite a bit, in my opinion. They're all great games, but this, I think, is where we're going to leave this tier today. If you want to see me play these types of games or any games in general, make sure you are subbed to this channel, the Mr. Terry Gaming channel, and you've enabled notifications so you can know when these live kind of Let's Plays are. So I'd love to have you around, and be sure to, be a familiar face there and be a part of our community. All right, there's some links below to some things. Join our Discord community. We talk about games a lot there, as well as just general history topics. Look in the description for other types of things going on as well, and stay tuned to my channel for more awesome, fun gaming stuff. All right, with that, we'll see you next time. Bye.